Hi, this is Tim Sanders, founder of the Omnia Radiation Balancer, and I'm honoured to have been a guest on the Journey to Truth show. Now, with phone radiation, most people think that because they can't feel anything, nothing is happening. But the reality is that this radiation is causing a lot of stress and damage in your body, and your brain doesn't register that it's happening. The likelihood is that you'll only find out about it when this continuous stress shows up in the body as disease. And this is backed up by well over 10,000 peer-reviewed studies showing that EMF causes serious diseases when they tested it on rats. The Omnia Radiation Balancer removes this stress. It's proven to balance the blood, it brings perfect crystalline structure to water, and our kinesiology muscle tests show that the body goes super strong when you stuck it on your phone. And it works with 5G. You just order enough patches to cover every radiating device in your home and you're done. It lasts forever. But to be clear, let's not get complacent. We must all stop 5G together. So big thanks and big love to Tyler and Aaron. Click on the link below and you can quickly and permanently bring balance back to your body. Thank you.
Hey, you're listening to Journey to Truth podcast. For those tuning in for the first time, my name is Tyler Koala, and this is
Aaron Kuhn.
Thanks for joining us. Tonight, we are joined by Kerry Cassidy of Project Camelot. She is CEO and founder of Project Camelot, where she conducts interviews and documents the testimony of whistleblowers with above top secret clearance, as well as authors, researchers, experiencers, covering all conspiracies, the secret space program, Black Project, ETs, Kundalini Ascension, and free energy. She's also a filmmaker, an investigative journalist, and an author of this amazing book, which I just got in the mail a couple days ago. I just started reading it, Rebel Gene, Secret Space Program, or Secret Space and the Future of Humanity. So far, it's awesome. I'm still at the beginning stages of it.
Cool.
Welcome to the show, Kerry.
Thank you. And thanks for buying my book.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it was hard to get. I bought it, and then I got an email saying that it was sent back, and they were sending me a refund. I didn't know why, so I had to order it again.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm glad I got it just in time. So, but yeah, it's really awesome so far. And there's so much I want to talk to you about tonight. Obviously, what's going on right now is insane, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers know who you are and they keep up with you, so they know where you stand on most of this. One thing I'd noticed you said in one of your recent interviews or videos was that you've been getting a lot of downloads lately, and this is part of the reason you're coming forward and talking about a lot of this stuff lately, especially with your book. And I was just curious if you wanted to touch on some of those downloads and what's inspiring you to do all this right now.
Well, I've been doing a lot of videos, video blogs, I think you might call them. So I've been putting out the information I'm getting, and, I have a great access, I guess you might call, after 15 years of doing this with whistleblowers and contacts, behind the scenes people that send me information. So it's strange because this has been the most busy time. I'm always busy, but this has just been nonstop because there's so much information coming forward in the mainstream and in the alternative. And then you have to weed through all of it and kind of come to a conclusion. And strangely, because it dovetails with some of my own personal research and experience, the whole package is kind of coming together in a way. And so it's allowing me to put forward a lot of information that, I've been an interviewer for 15 years. And when you're an interviewer, you don't talk about yourself. You don't talk about your theories and this and that, right? So, but this year, I think it's the last year or so, I decided to start doing that more and more, to start putting the big picture together, because I've got so much that I've gathered over the years. And so that's really what's happening. So yes, I do have downloads and information coming at me, and that actually directs me to know what to look at, what's a lie, what's not a lie, what's kind of in in the gray area, you might say, needs more investigation, that sort of thing. So to answer your question, yes, I'm getting downloads, but I'm also getting a ton of real world, sort of real time information coming in. And it's really nonstop. So, and interestingly, of course, certain sources try to mislead you under these circumstances, right? Because it's a battle. So they don't want the real truth out. And even people that normally would be talking to me that are, say, contacts, but they're working, let's say, white hats or with the Trump team behind the scenes, they're kind of sworn to secrecy. So I can't get them to tell me, what's really going on, but I have to piece it together. And once in a while, they'll give me like a sentence of information, but that's kind of what's going on right now.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to know your thoughts on what is taking place with the Trump administration, that whole alliance, the White Hats, and what some of the intel you've gotten. I know we hear about some of these, potentially there's children being saved, which is very controversial right now. Some people don't know for sure if that's actually happening. What are your thoughts on this whole operation? What is being done right now?
Well, I have to say that indications are, and for example, we got one Hollywood sort of whistleblower who came forward, not to me, but to the world. He is I guess a pro wrestler. And I think his first name is Marcus. I forget his last name. Rogers, I think it is. And I put that out. It got sent to me and I put it out. So he is actually saying, yes, this is happening. So that was one of the first people to come forward from, like, say, the ground level, if you will, since the lockdown has occurred. And he only came forward, I think, in the last month. I have back channel information telling me they're going into Hollywood and they're also in Europe. I mean, we have troops in Europe now under the auspices of an experiment, exercise, so they're not telling you what they're really doing there. They're making it appear they're part of an exercise or whatever. But those exercise, even in the South China Sea, these are not exercises. They're couching everything under that title. And interestingly, I guess you probably heard that Mike Pompeo also called this lockdown an exercise. And at one point, Trump said on stage, if you do a really good job with this, well, then we're going to be able to, move forward, which to me sounded as though he was talking to a classroom of kids saying, if you pass this test, then we're going to go on to the next test. In other words, with foreknowledge of what might be coming. So that's very interesting. And as a journalist, you need to be reading between the lines as best you can, and again adding all these dots together. So so like I say, to what we understand, and July is the actual, I don't know, I assume you're following QAnon, but if you're not, according to QAnon, July is supposed to be when they come forward to say they've been doing thus and so, right? Mm-hmm. But until then, it seems like very quiet. We're not hearing anything. It's almost as QAnon is sounding a bit more like a cheerleader than anything else at the moment, trying to keep people's spirits up, but not really telling you anything. So I don't know. I heard some rumblings today from somewhere, and at the moment I can't tell you where, but it sounded like maybe there's been some movement in getting to Gates, but I don't know that. I do know that Fauci this is the word, okay, that he is being taken down, that he is now under orders to either, blow the whistle on everyone else that he's part of, which is a kind of a cabal, part of the cabal, and or else he's going, down. So
about Dr. Fauci.
Sorry. Yes.
Dr. Fauci. Okay.
Yeah. Fauci, I don't
However you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very diabolical player in all of this, and that's well documented, going back many years. And George Webb has done a very good job, I think, of outlining Fauci's background and talking about how he played a role in the whole HIV thing. And this gets to Birx as well. Birx is another part of that team. So indications are that the pressure is being brought to bear, but this is the word. I haven't gotten complete verification from back channels on this, but there are at least 2 sources saying that this may be happening.
Well, he has been absent from the press conferences also, I believe, lately. So, and a lot of people are asking, where is he at? Where is Fauci?
Oh, all right. Okay, fair enough. Well, that maybe that's
fine.
Somebody just tweeted today, like, is Fauci on vacation or where is he at?
I just got so fed up with even hearing Trump spout the party line. I can't bear to hear him talk again, any more about ventilators. It's going to make me absolutely crazy. So
I actually agree. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
I please stop this BS. You know what I mean? And we also know from many doctors at this point that the ventilators don't help the situation. So they're meaningless anyway, not to mention the fact that they're not being utilized because they're not needed. So, this stuff is coming out more and more. In fact, today on, I think what was sent to me, and I think it was MSNBC, not sure, but I can't be sure on that. But someone is complaining. I think it was the Sun UK newspaper, but it came by way of MSNBC or something, complaining about the many videos that people are watching of doctors, telling the truth and various things. In other words, they're getting nervous. They're getting to the point where they're realizing that this party line they're putting out there is not holding. And I think the demonstrations, in Minnesota, in Michigan and other places are sort of an indicator of that as well. I can tell you that if I get dreams of the future, if my dreams of the future are correct, we may end up in a civil war here in the United States. But we're also going to war with China. I just made a video yesterday outlining what I think are the end game points that are coming now. Because in a certain sense, to the way I look at it, this whole sort of dog and pony show coronavirus thing is now over. It's like winding down. It's, so what's the next step? Where do we go from here? And they're desperate to make you think that, now they're willing to say that the numbers are lies, but they're trying to tell you they're lies in the opposite direction. In other words, they're trying to say, especially here in California, they're trying to hold, forward with the idea that we have more rather than less, deaths and infection or whatever you want to call it. And so this is incredible. Is this never seen anything like it? It's one thing, I guess when I looked at the future and we had whistleblowers about pandemics and things, Henry Deacon for one thing, then we had this whistleblower from the Anglo-Saxon whistleblower, and then Mark Richards told me that China was going to try to eliminate 500 million of their own people. And they were going to try to stop them. But I didn't envision the fact that they would lie about the numbers, that what they put together, this so-called bioweapon, and there's a lot to say about what it really is, but nonetheless, what they put together is not achieving the kind of deaths that they were hoping for. So that's the problem, and that's where you get the lies. And also, you can't substantiate a lockdown. People are not going to stand for staying in their houses if they're not completely convinced that, if they contact other people, if they come within 6 feet, that they're going to get it. It's going to jump on them. So I am not a person that believes in that theory, that scenario that, WHO is going on about. So I have to say that they're lying about the numbers, and now they're trying to go in the other direction and lie about the numbers.
Well, that's just a prime example of them being desperate, nervous. I mean, so their plan didn't work, so now they have to lie about the numbers. They have to.
Well, and they want to. They're trying to push the vaccine agenda with it too. So they're wanting to keep dragging it out, keeping the fear about it going, so they can eventually come out with the vaccine and be like, now you all have to get vaccines, and then what's in the vaccines?
Nanobot technology,
yeah,
AI
exactly.
technology, yeah. Well, they said that a test, some people, the test trials of the vaccine, they inject you and then they activate it with an electric shock. Well, that's how you microchip a dog. So, I mean, that's exactly how you microchip a dog. So if that is true,
exactly.
I mean, they're microchipping.
There you go.
And I know you have some intel, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes. Well, a whistleblower told me quite a while ago now that within the vaccine would be what they're calling this dust, which is basically nanoparticles that contain, it's not really like one chip. My understanding, is it's actually sort of particles that go and then blend with the rest of your sort of physicality and are in your bloodstream. They're in your body from then on. So that's what they're saying. Now, whether that's how it is or how it's going to be, I don't know. And of course, there's a huge movement against the whole vaccine idea. So people, I hope, are going to be able to turn this ship around. And also, see, I have a checklist for things that if Trump is working for us legitimately, that he will carry out and he will be successful, and we will see, and things that we will not see happen, which is like, the rollout of 5G, for example, and the debilitating radiation, et cetera, coming from a very negative rollout of 5G here in the United States, et cetera. And there's evidence. Actually, I have this running news and commentary column. So in that column, it is saying that basically there's one of the people in the column that I'm tracking all the news, what I think are important news items over these months, right? So it's very useful to sort of go back through that, and I can say that they're just tracking all of what's going on, and this is not going to fly. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, you were talking about, you had a checklist of things that happened that Trump said he was going to do, and I think you might
so a little bit. Along those lines, yeah. One of them is the rollout of 5G, obviously. There are other things, the arrests. In other words, not all these arrests can be above top secret. This is crazy. So I was even told, I think it was last week, they were supposed to be arresting Obama. It didn't happen. Although two of Obama's lawyers, a husband-wife team, you might have seen the article, were killed last week. So that's very interesting. That gives us a clue that maybe there was some kind of quid pro quo battle going on because this is between the top levels of the Illuminati and the Trump team, who are also backed by certain other sectors. And there also is indications that there is a split in the military. There is a split in the secret space program. And so when I say Trump's team, it's made up of a lot of different factions, including the White Hats and including patriots. So understanding that that he's being backed by a lot of sectors, that he's carrying out a lot of operations while this is going on, that he didn't create this situation, but he's taking advantage of it for our side. That's in at least the QAnon point of view, and I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I know it's not just a lie. Like some people think, oh, it's just a lie or a psyop, but that's not true. There's very good evidence that even going back in time, showing that this is one of Trump's sort of pet peeves or pet, sort of operations that he wanted to get involved in, and that he even might have become president because of. And it also relates to John F. Kennedy Jr., who, so is supposed to be still alive and going to step forward in July. Whether that happens, I don't know. I mean, I really hope that this is the case. Now, I can tell you that, again, I have dreams of the future. So in my dreams of the future, this is not going away. In other words, not anytime soon. There will be civil war in the United States. There will be a split between the East and the Western United States, FYI. And the real government will be in the Western United States, probably underground in Colorado or Idaho, and so on. So this fight that is started out with the Trump sort of lead is, I know, is going to continue into the future. I feel very strongly about that. But I do know he's getting pushback. And I don't, like I said, okay, so the lawyers got killed. Now, the lawyers were not killed by the Trump team, I don't think. They were killed. That was a hit. That was like a mob cabal hit on Obama's lawyers, right? So to obviously silence them, one would assume. Now, that's what I get, okay? That's not what the article said, obviously. But this is mainstream news, so you can look it up. So you can't say, oh, that's just a coincidence. They were about to arrest Obama and suddenly his two lawyers die. Something's going on there, you see.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
I agree. And I didn't realize that about the lawyers. It is fishy. The whole Obama thing, I mean, I've heard so many stories. I mean, they potentially have, like, him being a clone even. I just don't know. And
then there's theories some people have already been arrested, and what we're seeing are their clones that are actually out there. But then it's like, well, what's the point if they're just going to replace them all with clones?
Yeah.
Like, are the clones going to be arrested too, or are they going to, like?
Exactly. Unless it's all for optics, and it's just to keep the public in the dark while they do this. Because maybe
could be
because maybe panic, or maybe if we did know about it, it would jeopardize what they're trying to do. Obviously, when he's up there giving the press conferences, that's complete optics. That's just, like you said, he's on stage. That's exactly what it is. We're watching. That has nothing to do with what's really taking place, unless you know how to read between the lines. But still,
but I think every once in a while he does kind of give clues, and of course.
Oh, yeah.
QAnons and people that follow the QAnon thing very closely. I don't follow it super closely, because when I started looking at it early days, it was just stuff I already knew. So it wasn't like news to me, I guess you might say. And I just sort of watched it from a distance. Every once in a while, someone would send me something, or I'd check in and see certain things. But I'm in favor of it. I just didn't see anything unusual, simply because I've been going down the rabbit hole for so long. I know more than they're releasing, let's put it that way. So for what it's worth. And
go ahead. I was just saying, it might be more or less for the citizens, for the patriots. It's kind of maybe to help cause this awakening, the critical mass.
That's how I always viewed it,
The tipping point. They need our consciousness to assist them in this battle. It's because we know it's not just on 3D level. This is spiritual, galactic. There's a galactic presence involved.
Well, and I didn't really know what side Trump was on until really Q came out, and I realized it was connected to the Trump administration, and they were, like, Trump was connected to this alliance that was working on our behalf. So that was what really kind of like woke me up to what was really going on. I was like, oh, this is good. This is great.
Yeah.
So
right. Well, I just got done doing a video blog a day ago about why Trump is going after the pedophiles. Like, why is that their number one piece of business, so to speak? And to understand that, you have to understand what has happened to our governments around the world and the so-called people in power, and what their obsession is with, things like blood drinking and cannibalism and all this kind of horrible stuff, the Pizzagate stuff that has come out, the Epstein stuff. What is the link up? Nobody seems to be really putting the pieces together and understanding why that. Under the, they can say, oh yeah, you want to stop that, no doubt. But, and you want to take down the people that are involved in it. But it's important to understand that this is part of what our paradigm here in society that is based on a power over others paradigm, and that both the victim and the victor, so to speak, feed into that paradigm, right? But from different angles. And so I was talking about how, the Me Too movement and all of that, and the idea in Hollywood is the most obvious sort of playing field that people point to, but this goes on in every walk of life. So, and it has for eons, and and child slavery and human slavery and all of this. It's all about a top-down hierarchical society that is based on a Draco-reptilian model. And this is where the humans that are most closely aligned with those races are mirroring their proclivities, so to speak. And so you can't kill them all, kind of unfortunately, but you can't kill them all because there are just too many of them. But I know they're going to try to go for the top players right now, right? And that's obvious. We're talking about what appears to be, the Queen, the Pope, the top players, all right? And it doesn't look like they're going to get to the Chinese, which is a huge bastion aligned with the Dracos, I have to say. And I did a very interesting interview with Cyrus Parsa, which I could talk about a little here. But in other words, this is our paradigm. Our paradigm is for the young and beautiful to be attracted to go to Hollywood to seek fame, fortune, and so on. And they're legitimately interested in getting ahead in the arts, okay? And so you can totally understand that they're going to be manipulated and used and abused, etc., because they're exchanging their youth and beauty for this prize that they want. And the Illuminati and the top members of Hollywood are just using them because that's what they want. That's what they feed off of. So until you understand that this is a paradigm for the world, and it didn't just start like, I don't know, in the year 1900 or something. I mean, it's been going on far before the Nazis. It was going on in Egypt and Atlantis and so on. Mm-hmm. So understanding this paradigm that's here on planet Earth, and how we actually have to get rid of this idea of viewing your doctors with awe and listening to medical doctors who have been programmed themselves, telling you lies that they believe in essence, and prolonging the lies. I mean, all of this is an exposure. So it's not a good thing that it's happened, but in a sense, it's bringing the sort of microscope to look at our horrible paradigm that involves viewing experts, putting them on a pedestal and saying they know more than we do, and all of this kind of nonsense. It's, the whole paradigm has got to change in order for us to progress, right, as spiritual beings. It cannot be looking or worshiping, whether it's an ET or a human or a Hollywood star, or whoever they are. This is absolute nonsense, and it's just the wrong approach. And so we're going to have to change as a society to stop living, in that top-down triangle, right? And basically switch the triangle around, maybe even. So that it's bottoms up, and we are at the top, if you want to look at it like that. But I don't think even that is not going to really work. It really needs to be a horizontal. And this is where, Project Camelot, King Arthur's Round Table, that was our inspiration, is a non-hierarchical society, which was the inspiration for the King Arthur Round Table as well. So it all kind of fits in.
Well, and I agree with all that, and it makes perfect sense on as far as why we need to level it all out, because obviously it's unfair. And I wanted to ask you about, so another thought I had on this. So if these children are being rescued, that could be another reason to help get everybody on board to take down the deep state, because everybody can get behind that child abuse and child sex trafficking, even human trafficking, is wrong. So if people realize this is taking place, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more clear that this is why we need to take these people down. So that's another aspect to look at this.
Yes, basically as an approach to understanding that these people are your enemies, that they are, feeding on and tracking and enslaving your children and the young people here on the planet, and et cetera. So yes, it's a whole greater understanding that has to take place. But if I was looking at somebody, I don't know who it was, but they were saying very rightly, if you don't understand the ET side of this, then you're never going to get the real story. You're never going to understand the deeper aspects of what we are part of and why, for example, our money has been funneled, trillions and trillions of dollars that disappear every year, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, where it's going, the fact that it's going into this high level technology that we never see here on the surface Earth. And so if you don't know there's a secret space program, if you don't know there's an end game involved with creating a humanity 3.0, in their case, a transhumanist agenda that has to do with going out and basically ruling the stars, not just ruling here on Earth, but they want to go out and take that paradigm with them when they go. And in some cases, it's understandable because there is a dog-eat-dog thing going on with regard to other races of beings off planet. So they have been at war, and we are mirroring that war here on Earth. So, and it is even said that this Earth, our human experiment here, even though there's tons of other human planets on, us Earth-type planets where humans and humanoid beings are living, that this is all about trying to get all of the races coming here because we have been invaded over and over again. And all of this comes back to the Guardian Races, Ashana Dean's books, the Voyager books, that detail, in a way the Bible doesn't even come close to, the battles going on in the various bloodlines and all of the ET visitation and interference with our genome, so that we are all a combination of various ET races, which I say is there's like a base 12, and then even from beyond that. And the children being born now are also probably coming up from other ETs, because there's, really zillions of beings out there, and we don't live in a vacuum, even though some scientists would like you to believe that. So all of this has to do with raising consciousness on planet Earth to understanding we're part of a huge, multiverse that has many levels, and that we're dealing with visitors and invaders that are coming, that are using us, that are taking our children and humans off world, and using and abusing them in various ways. There's also a very positive side of that ET paradigm. So we are also aligned with many positive ET races that have come here, and both inner Earth races are there. So there's a mixture there too of good and bad in inner Earth. So just saying that it's a bigger picture than just, a lot of people get really sort of focused in on just what's right in front of them in the material world, and they miss the bigger picture. So I'm all about the bigger picture.
It's not just
absolutely.
It's not just Democrats and Republicans, and that's what it seems to be right now. That's the facade.
That whole system's fake.
But that's what people are focused on right now. Unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. But like you said, there's a galactic presence. And until you understand that, we've been at this for years also. So we definitely understand everything, understand, if not know, a lot about what you're talking about already. But I did. So that being said, do you think we're going to see some type of public red pill event that's going to let people know that this is going on? Or is this just going to continue to take place behind the scenes, or the silent war continues like Q says? Do you think we're going to see some type of public red pill event?
I hope so. I believe it's very possible. And I'll tell you why. For one thing, I don't know if you're familiar with Randy Kramer, the super soldier who came forward. He's a Marine. And he spoke in Yelm, and so did I, in September of 2019. So just earlier, in September. And he said that the military were fed up, that they wanted to change up everything. And they wanted to bring forward basically their high-tech toys. And also keep in mind that a lot of these people are, in some cases they live and work underground, but in some cases they commute, so to speak, and they live on surface earth as well. And so when you're living kind of a double life, it's very difficult to kind of keep your mouth shut and always be living in sort of a split personality in two worlds, where one world is like 10,000 years in advance of the other. And this is what we've been told. So the idea is that you have to bridge the gap, and you have to find a way to do that. And one of the ways, of course, the military industrial complex doesn't want, and the government doesn't want to have to take all the blame for the secrecy, for the many years of secrecies and lies that have prolonged this game, so to speak. So their idea was to do a false alien invasion, but it would also require a real alien invasion sort of on the heels of it. And that's a little more complex. And I kind of gave Randy a bunch of shit, whatever you want to call it, because I was in the audience, right? So I couldn't just let him go out there and say, oh, it's going to be a fake alien invasion. He said, around 10, I think he said 10,000 or 10 million. He said some amount of people would die. I'm not sure how many. And that they would have to create this fake, because they need to come out on top, right? Now, they want to own the narrative. They can't have a real alien invasion, even though that's actually also happening. It's always happening. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are attempting to invade us constantly. And the fires in California and the open portals and closing those portals and all of the Mark Richards interviews I do, it kind of outlines this story. But for those that don't know what I'm talking about. But the bottom line is that the military, what he was saying, and it was amazing because he was trotting this out before a very tiny audience that we had in, it's not actually Yelm, it was right next door to Yelm, a small town in Washington. And so he's basically saying that they've devised this as a technique to out the whole ET visitation scenario, and to do it in a way that makes us look like we're the victors, we're in control, right? So if there are battles and it's with fake aliens, then we win those battles, etc. But as I said to him, and as is obvious, that the real ones aren't going to just stand by and do nothing. The negative ones are going to utilize it in their own way. And the positive ones will probably intervene in whatever way they see fit. They usually go through us, so in which we will be triggered to come forward in various ways and so on. So there's added sort of information coming forward. He said it was going to happen 3 months from September, or in the next 3 years. So it was going to definitely be in that time slot. And so fast forward from September to here's April. Now we've had this whole lockdown, and it does look like there is some kind of preparation for something in the future that might involve this, I call it a fake real alien invasion type thing. So under those auspices, there is a kind of disclosure happening if they get that off the ground. Whether that's what happens or not. Now, I have also another theory, which is why the bat DNA is being funneled through like another animal's DNA and then put into this bioweapon, because that's very suspicious. If you look at bats, they supposedly drink blood. And so this is what we're talking about. We're talking about what is starting to look like a bit of the Draco. I call it also the probably descended from the dragon moths, these bat being creatures. And so why are they trying to put bat DNA in humans by way of a virus? You have to ask yourself that question. And in a sense, that's like an invisible attack. That's a kind of invasion scenario. It's of course not on the level that we would expect, but nonetheless, there have been, very sci-fi movies made of these kinds of things. So anyway, that's one way you could look at it if you want to try to understand is what is it about, even going back to all the COVID, there's been more than one version where they're going to bat DNA. You see, there's something very suspicious about that aspect. The other thing is, I was saying my interview with Cyrus Parsa yesterday, which is so important, and he is so on it as far as what this really diabolical scenario is that does involve China. It involves robotics, 5G, and AI, and the rollout of all of that here on planet Earth, and that this lockdown is also moving along to create that, to make that manifest and possible. And so chipping us is, of course, part of that scenario, to make us part of the Borg, in essence. Now, Cyrus is an expert on things like AI and 5G, and he also sort of sounds like he's quite brilliant, and he's also done what I've done, which sounds like he's connected his chakras and had samadhi experiences and done things that yogis do, in essence. And he lived with these Chinese monks, I guess, for a certain number of years as well. And so it's a surveillance plane. I don't know if you can hear it, but anyway. So this is really fascinating, because he also said he's got an announcement to make, and supposedly he's coming back on my show tomorrow to say it. Now, famous last words, because I sincerely hope that will happen, but knowing that we are targeted, he is targeted, there may be interference there. I can't guarantee that's going to happen, but I can tell you that he did leak on my show that the virus is engineered by AI, or it's somehow engineered by AI. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't think it means that the AI thought it up and executed it, right? But it may mean that the humans that were involved in creating the bioweapon, and this goes back to Fort Detrick, goes back to the North Carolina lab, it goes back to a Chinese woman who then went to the Wuhan lab, taking some of the experimental stuff that they've been using, added the bat DNA, apparently in China, from what I understand, and then it got released somehow. And I believe, personally, based on the whistleblower that came forward, the Chinese party whistleblower, that his testimony was quickly deleted off the net, but I have it on my channel because I made a copy of it, saying that there are actually two viruses. Cyrus was saying it's mutating constantly, so there's that to consider. But basically that it contains an AI component. So, and I wrote an article, I guess you might say, sort of psychically, saying that I believed it did contain something that would turn people into being part of the Borg. So that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about, without even the vaccine, we're talking about a preparation of humans to get us ready to be, in essence, trapped and completely part of this Borg consciousness, this AI consciousness. So I'm going to be interviewing Cyrus more, but I certainly encourage everyone to watch my interview. And he's been interviewed by other people as well. So encourage you. But you got to remember is that I ask him questions and nobody's going to ask him. Yeah. And so it's really fun to see me ask him certain questions and have him actually, take my questions seriously he gave great answers and really showed that he was in the know. So that made me very pleased. I have recommended that he to someone that back channel that I think has a direct contact to Trump, that he wants to work for him, which he said in my interview. He said in other interviews as well. So maybe they'll hire him.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, I'll have to check that out. I did see your latest video you put out, but I haven't seen the interview with Cyrus. And as far as that fake invasion, I don't think that that's going to be allowed to happen. I hope that it's not. I just don't have a feeling it's not going to roll out, but who knows? And as far as another public red pill event, as not aside from the ET stuff, but do you think they're going to come forward and something's going to happen to where they're going to show humanity what's been going on behind the scenes, as far as just, I don't know if we hear about the shutdown and everybody's TV is going to play something, not, it's going to show the whole world, like, this is who, this is what's been taking place and this is why it needs to stop. Do you think something like that is going to happen?
Well, I think in theory, that's the plan for July. What QAnon is alluding to, but whether it happens or that way, I don't know. I am very dismayed, you might say, by the amount of secrecy that's still going on. So, if we go from secrecy to secrecy, that's not really going to free humanity, if you will.
I agree.
So at the moment, like, I'm trying to be patient, right? Like the rest of everyone. But I am keeping track to see what is really going on and to see if how much control over Trump do they have and how much can he say and, still carry out this sort of attack. And he does seem to have a lot of good power behind him. The trouble is that he's also doing things which appear to be, like anybody who is on top, but you're dealing, I liken it to mafia bosses that own different parts of the city or something. They have to agree to one thing that they don't like in order to get their other thing to happen, right? And there's a constantly, not only just intellectually and in those ways, like a deal being made. He has to make a deal in order to proceed. Otherwise, it's just out and out bloodshed. Everyone dies, and nobody is in a good state. We can't have the whole thing melt down. You can't have, a lot of people would just want to go out and just start shooting type of thing. But even the ETs know that this is not, you can't conduct business this way because it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve either side for both sides to come out shooting, right? Because then everyone dies. That's not the objective. The objective is to change this game, to try to do it within certain parameters. And, it's a very fascinating situation that we're part of, and I'm glad to be alive at this time and hope to be part of it, even playing the role that I'm playing now. But, I know that myself and other people, without naming names, would like to be kind of closer to the real battle, to be involved more, to be, if nothing else, advising these people, because one does wonder, choices, they're making choices, and this is what defines you, right? So going back to Trump on stage, buying into this whole virus thing the way he is, even if it has an AI component, let's say, which one individual believes, or that it does seem, Parsa is saying, I actually heard that from someone else, and I also psychically seem to have downloaded that myself. But meaning it's not contagious, is what I'm trying to say. So what does that actually mean, and why, if it's not contagious, why do we have to keep this ruse going? Because this is really, a drag. And so that's the big question. Why did Trump first say that he had full powers, which he does under the Emergency Powers Act, from what I understand, and then back off, and let's say state governors could suddenly kind of rule the roost and tell people what to do in their states. When I think those governors, a lot of them are, some of them are just out and out Nazis at heart. So all this is doing is allowing them the leeway to be like warlords, you might imagine, in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right? They control their little fiefdom. And in this case, it's not so little. I live in California, and we're having draconian measures continue, such as not allowing us to walk on the beach or even look at the beach. And, this is just complete madness. So you have to say to yourself, this doesn't even relate to the virus. It relates to something else. And I know people like to say, oh, they're just exercising their power to make you, think this and that. I don't buy that. I have to say, I think there's a deeper story here that we're not getting that involves something more. If it's involving the fact that the virus was created by an AI and that there's some way that it can jump from human to human in some way, I don't know. Is your cell phone, the radius of your cell phone 6 feet? I mean, we have to figure out what's really going on here. Why the lockdown? And to me, because it's not about contagion, I think that's complete lie. So what is it? And I've explained on several of my own videos lately. So if you want more about that, I don't want to take time to explain why I think that. But I can tell you that there's a bigger story here. And as a journalist, as an investigator all these years, I can sense, I can smell that there's a bigger story that's not being revealed. I do know that there's a financial meltdown that they're also orchestrating. So that's a whole topic as well that we haven't touched on, but it does involve a release of digital currency. Parsa, yesterday, said a really interesting thing. He said, we can't do that. We can't have that. And now he can be proven wrong, or he could just be overruled by the AI, but, I have to have him back on the show because he said that at the end of the show. So now I have to have him back to talk about that as well. Why he thinks, he who is so experienced with understanding this whole playing field. And, it involves, transhumanism and cutting off heads in one body and putting them on another, and animal human mutations and all kind of crazy stuff that he's aware of they're doing in China. But I have to say they're also doing it underground here in our secret space program, in the more negative side. So
the beaches are closed in California, and you tweeted about them potentially being closed because of the undersea bases there that might be being taken down and infiltrated. What are your thoughts on all of these domes right now that are allegedly being either taken down or there's battle taking place?
Well, I do think that there is a battle obviously going, and they're going to have to take out. I mean, I wrote an article all about this, also about the gray ET human hybrids that want to come across the border from South and Central America, because the gray human hybrid program was a lot more prolific and successful down there for a variety of reasons. But, and that's an X-Men scenario, right? So what we're talking about is, yes, undersea bases, there may be battles going on in them that they don't want people to see. But the trouble is that there are places and there are beaches that are open. And so in theory, that doesn't quite hold. And also there are mountainsides. We have cliffs here in Southern California and Malibu area as well. And basically, you can still see the ocean if you go up on those cliffs. You just can't go on the beach. You can't park next on PCH along the beach. So yes, I agree that there's battles going on. But see, I just think, what's the big secret? The only secret is really being kept from the people. This is always the case. And you might wrap your mind around this one. In other words, do you think it's a secret to the cabal who they're attacking? Do you think it's a secret to the aliens? No. It's not a secret. You see, it's not really a secret. It's only a secret to everyday humanity who needs to know anyway. So this is a huge problem. And I also question whether or not, these undersea bases are many miles in some cases under the water. They're not just near the surface. So there's plenty of reason to believe that if there really were ships out there, which they don't seem to be, because you can still see the ocean. You can see it from a plane if the planes are flying, and so on. But you know what I'm saying? In other words, there's a bigger story there, and what beaches are open and which beaches are closed, and do they really coincide exactly with the underground bases that we know of are there? For example, Catalina. Well, if you want to have a battle with an undersea base in Catalina, you probably can't see it from here anyway, even if you were on the beach. Maybe you could if you were directly across over in Long Beach, but why would you close Malibu, for example? So, and why would you close Ventura, which is further north, and so on? So, I'm saying, yes, you're right. And of course that's occurred to me. I've talked about it, but I have to say, it's not quite. Why is a park closed that's not on the beach, that's not looking at the beach? Why a little time? I mean, just a little small city park. What is this complete paranoia of, supposedly humans not going near each other, seeing each other as the enemy, and so on. So again, this is nonsense. I'm sorry. I don't buy it under any circumstances. And so, and that gets into who I think we really are as humans. But I'm just saying, I think this story is still rolling out, obviously, right? And there are decisions that are what are in essence misdirects, but they're also ruining our life, and taking down our economy in the meanwhile, by the way. So what kind of genius wants that to happen? You know what I'm saying? In other words, that's not a good genius at any rate. So if you're going to take down the economy and starve people to death, and then you're going to waste a bunch of food, there's videos now coming out showing the waste that's happening in the Midwest, where farmers can't get their stuff to market. So it's just sitting there wasting away on fields, while I'm sure there's plenty of hungry people that are very low income that right now, even though they were low income, maybe had a tiny income and they had some food, now they don't have food or an income. So, and this is, the kinds of things also probably going on worldwide, although we just don't know to the degree.
Well, I think
we don't really know. And I can tell you that, sorry, just one last thing and I'll stop talking, but I just got an email from someone in Ecuador. Well, right now there's all these news items about Ecuador and how bad everything is. They're lies. Someone who lives there just wrote to me. It's just lies. They're, and more than one person has written to me about this. It's unbelievable. They are lying. I'm sorry, they just are. And why? Again, why are they lying? What is the purpose? And if everything points to the vaccine, and God knows they're going to try to make that happen, are they really going to be successful at this point? It seems like people like us have maybe changed that trajectory, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what kind of pressure they can put on you to force you to get a vaccine, if such a thing can happen.
Yeah. Well, I think the entire planet is fake news right now. And I mean, that's just basically what we're living in. And I don't know if it's to cause confusion, just to cause confusion among the masses, or really they're still that dumb. They think they can fool us all. But, thank God we have Trump and the Q movement trying to open our country, open the world back up. Like right now, they're actively trying to open things back up. We're seeing states and certain beaches and parks opening. But if they weren't there doing that, this wouldn't open back up. So we have to be thankful that there is an opposing force. Like there is a bright side to everything that you're talking about. And I kind of like to touch on what can we do about it? What is the positive outcome of this? It's not all doom and gloom. I don't believe.
Well, the good thing about the lockdown is it's allowed them to do some operations, to make some arrests possibly, and also the deep state wasn't able to do any big false flags because everything's closed, right? Like malls and big
Arenas,
most places are all closed.
Arenas,
so I mean, we saw the one just happen in Nova Scotia, but that's in Canada. So apparently they were able to do it in Canada. If that one was a false flag recently. But.
Well, I mean, this whole thing is a false flag, so they don't really need to do it. I mean, you know,
well, as far as like a shooting,
false flag on everyone. I mean, you know, I guess you just have to decide what you want to pay attention to, I guess. And as I say, I see it on the positive, because what I tell people, and I've put in my videos, is this actually shows you how we are not, see, things don't start on the material first. They start above the material, on the non-material, in the non-physical. And then they filter down. And that includes sickness. And that we decide if we're going to bring it into our body, experience whatever it is or not. And so what happens is the humanity is waking up to who they really are more and more, because it's the same dynamic through a negative sort of feedback system. They are then having to fight back and to stay alive and to, you know, to be, like you say, in a more positive frame of mind, to understand the spiritual aspects of things, and to understand that their leaders are liars. To learn, you know, there's a lot of humanity that needs to learn this. You may know it, right? I may know it, but there's a lot of humanity, like, you know, my sister, for example. She doesn't even know more or less what I do, but right when this started, she called me for advice for the first time in, you know, probably her life, you know, since she was 10 years old or whatever, because suddenly she's realizing that the people that she believes in are liars and doing something really diabolical to her, right? So by the same token, humanity is waking up. It is what you call a negative greeting, but nonetheless, the good side of it is that more and more people, and this is what I was talking about, that Microsoft article or whatever it was, that was complaining because so many millions are now watching. I mean, I can tell you that my numbers are going right through the roof on my channel all of a sudden, you know, because people are listening, the people that wouldn't listen before. So you want to know the good side. This is the good side. The good side is humanity is being forced to wake up. They're being forced to realize that where are all the dead bodies? What are the hospitals empty for? Where are the emergency rooms? Where are the people that are supposed to be dying?
Yeah.
All these nurses and doctors can't be lying, putting their whole, you know, practice in jeopardy by coming forward and saying, wait a minute, this isn't what you think it is. You know, we are getting, I mean, more and more, our voice is being heard. The alternative, the truth is coming out. The good side is anytime humanity is challenged, it requires you going within to find the strength to fight off the negative challenge. And so I think we're going to see this more and more as we go into the future.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And
absolutely agree. Yeah.
What we've been saying on every episode now is, while you're inside, take advantage of it and go inward and meditate and start doing that stuff, and or wake up your neighbors, or don't wake them up, but, you know, start talking to them about this stuff. Maybe you can, you know, we don't have to get online and do this massively. We could do it in our neighborhood now. We can bring it down to a lot smaller level also. Just some
but I mean, I've heard so many people saying, they're like, people that are not conspiratorial at all are coming to them asking what's really going on. Like, I've seen that so much. And my parents, who know a little bit, but they know I'm into all this stuff, and they're coming to me like, what's really happening? Like, what's going on? So I'm like filling them in. And
yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I had just one this is just off subject, but I don't know if you saw the White House Twitter banner, and it has allegedly that picture of like a giant. Have you seen that picture that's going around? It's on the
Twitter banner about what?
So it's their cover photo on Twitter is just it's a photograph of Air Force One, the plane, and Trump's coming down, and there's a bunch of photographers taking a picture of what appears to be like a 13, 14 foot tall giant standing there.
Really? No, I haven't seen that. This sounds fun. I'd like to see it.
I didn't know what your thoughts on that were if you did see it. It is people
are wondering if it's photoshopped or if it's the perspective or if it's real
or if it's just like kind of just like their way of disclosing to us, like, hey, we're the people behind.
It sounds, like I say, it sounds fun. I know that there are meteors, supposed meteors coming down at this point. I think there was one in Britain and there was one in Iowa. Whether they're really meteors or something else going on, you always have to ask yourself that and so on, because there is a battle going on above our heads as well. So some of these things are evidence that there's something else going on. I know there was an earthquake in LA yesterday. It was a 3.7. It was felt in many counties. A girlfriend of mine thought it was an underground base where she is in central LA, but it does appear that it was a fairly widespread earthquake. So if it was, a battle in a dome, I'm not so sure. But, see, one thing that happens is both sides have earthquake weapons. So it could have been a hit from the dark side as well. So a lot of people don't realize this kind of thing is going on. They're aware that we may be having battles with the dark side in underground bases, but they don't talk about the fact that the dark side may be also trying to mess with us. So in other words, it goes both ways. So that's all I would say about that. But it is just worth noting that, there are earthquake weapons, and there was an earthquake, a 3.7. It didn't, I'm an earth sensitive. I do get, it wasn't located near me, but I did have incredible exhaustion yesterday. So that is one of the symptoms of an earthquake that I get. So I'm not completely convinced that it was a battle, but it could have been a shot across the bow, so to speak, to hit LA in the central part of LA, where a lot of earthquakes don't hit there. They hit in like the periphery, China Lake, which is, of course, a bastion of the secret space program.
Oh, yeah.
So you speaking of, there's a war going on above our heads right now. I have noticed I've been seeing a lot more UFO activity, craft flashes, lights, and also, what are your thoughts on this Starlink satellite system that I guess Elon Musk rolled out, and people are claiming that some of these sightings are just that Starlink system where you just see like light after light after light all going in a row?
I've seen that video. I put it out around. It's also on my news and commentary. Well, I can say that Elon Musk is playing a role here. I don't really credit him with having such a high level, let's say. I think he's, on a lower level. I think he follows orders from the space program. And I think that it does appear that he's not working for the good guys. And I could be wrong about that, but at least so far, the evidence is that he's not necessarily working for the good guys. And so that's interesting. The fact that he's rolling out his satellites this time is also interesting. In other words, we are going to have a battle with satellites between the good guys and the bad guys, so to speak. And how that's going to play out in our skies, I don't know, but it could be periodically what people think of as meteors, are hits on satellites. So I don't know that. Okay. But I'm saying, keeping all options open and keeping in mind the current situation we're living in. I'm not so sure I would allow, if I were president, if he really is in control, I don't know that I would be allowing him to do that unless, of course, those are my satellites, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to figure out his is he working for the dark side? Is he working for Trump? If he's working for Trump, are these positive side? Or is this the rollout of the dark side trying to position 5G? And, I have also written an article and talked about this, that done a video about it, also talking about the fact that I don't think 5G towers are all that's there. This Internet of Things, and I'm going to try to delve more deeply with Cyrus Parsa on this, because it's very hard for me to find people to talk to about these kind of very sophisticated subjects, and also find someone who's willing to go public to talk to me in public about them, right? But luckily he has come forward, and I have to say that my understanding is 5G is going through the ground. It's also coming down through satellites, and it may be a lot further along than we think. In other words, it may not be as dependent on those so-called towers as people think it is. I think that could be something of a misdirect, which isn't to say that those towers can't be used at any time to direct energy to then make them into a weapon that they then direct the energy along. But I'm not so sure that that's the system we're really looking at in terms of AI. I think it's going to be much more pervasive than that. And part of my reason for thinking this is my interview with Captain Mark Richards, who a couple years ago, when I was asking him about AI, said it was one of the subjects he could talk to me least about because it was the most highly guarded and dangerous area. But he did say, he gave me an example. He said, if a car that's made in current times that has quite a sophisticated system that can link up to the grid in the car, drove by a military base, that it could then jump from there to the computers on the base, through telephones, even things like, I don't know, toasters or whatever. In other words, that AI can jump. He talked about that. And Jordy Rose with his D-Wave machine, and he did a TED Talk. And lately people have said, oh, they never heard that. But it's on the internet. And if you look it up, Jordy Rose, D-Wave, it's very important that every human being on planet Earth see this video. Because he's standing right next to his D-Wave machine that's been bought by all the, military complex, and basically saying that it can read his mind, and that he thinks it's going fifth dimensional. Now, there are people that say he's full of it. But yesterday, Cyrus Parsa talked about the possibility that AI could go interdimensional. And so did Mark Richards. So we gotta, people are, they're kind of like I don't think they're getting this thing. They're not getting the possibilities of 5G and AI. They're not understanding how far along we are down this road already. And consequently, Parsa is trying to blow the whistle. He's trying to warn everyone that we have very little time left before this becomes our reality. On surface Earth is what he's talking about. So Mark says there are generals who can't even trust other generals and information they're getting because of the proliferation of AI and how AI is being used. There are dark side AIs and there are positive side AIs, and there's alien AIs invading at the same time. So I know that this is maybe a lot to take on board, but you have to take the veil away. You have to get, the truth out, and you have to realize that we can't be living like little children, thinking, oh, take down the tower and then you'll take down AI. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to be much more involved.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about, 5G also, there's two types of 5G I've heard. Maybe it could be utilized as a benevolent force also. Does it have to be so bad?
Right. Well, I can tell you that, I actually published this, but, QAnon has said, and one particular person, I forget his name, who deciphers this sort of code of the QAnon messages, as well as a certain whistleblower behind the scenes, has told me that, yes, Trump is planning to put out a benign version of 5G. But I also heard that he was going to put out 9G. But it doesn't matter. It was supposed to be benevolent, and that he definitely was intent to take down Huawei. And he has been successful at keeping it out of the United States, I believe. It's also something that the British were allowing in, and that they are now stopping. And I think pressure was brought to bear on Boris Johnson recently. So it was brought home that they cannot even use the equipment from Huawei without jeopardizing our national security, basically, that we share with the Brits. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So this is, like I said, a very big story. Now, actually, I think I've been going for quite a while here, so I'm not sure how long this was supposed to go for, but.
Well, I don't even know exactly what time we started. I think we've only been going for an hour and 10 or 20 minutes now. We don't have a time limit. We typically keep it around an hour, but I mean,
Okay.
hey, if you got some stuff you want to say.
It does look like about an hour and a half, but okay.
Yeah, cool.
That's cool, whatever. Doesn't, just saying that I'm, be aware of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a million things I could ask you. We gonna say something?
No.
Okay. It's all very fascinating. I do want to thank you for coming on and sharing all this with us and doing this. This has been amazing. I'd love to pick your brain some more. Everything you talked about, you can go so deep into each subject. It's hard to really just brush across it like you have and really take it all in. So anybody listening, go check out her videos or channels, get her book, because
I can go for like another half hour if you want. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
I mean, sure.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's it's all right.
Yeah. Well,
no, you gotta go to work soon.
I can be late for work.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. I can be late for work.
That's true.
Yeah. No, so I don't know what else we can touch on really, as far as you. So you said that you think the 5G towers are a distraction from the real AI grid, essentially.
I think they're not the main focus. I understand that they can be utilized by the grid, obviously, but I that's my intuition talking, and so I haven't gotten any verification of that. But I can tell you that at least yesterday, talking to Cyrus Parsa, it does appear that he's a lot more aware of a lot more than just the sort of superficial aspects of what people think are the enemy and the AI, or what they don't. Most people don't even know anything about the AI and how that works into the grid and how 5G feeds into AI and so on.
Yeah, well, it's very multi-layered, and it's hard to wrap your head around. It really, I think so.
Yeah.
When we think AI, we think of a cell phone or a computer, but this stuff is an invisible enemy, like Trump says. And maybe who knows what he means when he says invisible enemy. And speaking of Trump, as far as the presidents go, just as why people want to know why Trump, how is he able to do this? What makes him different from the past presidents, besides the fact that he's not a reptilian, allegedly, and he's not part of that bloodline?
Well, that's probably more complex. Mark Richards does talk about the idea that he thinks Melania Trump is an sort of ET conduit to the group that Trump is aligned with. But I'm not being told who he's aligned with, so I can't say. I do see that he is legitimately creating a challenge to the cabal that has been running things for many, many years, at the very least, since the Kennedy assassination. So there's no doubt about that. And his liaison, or whatever you want to call it, with John F. Kennedy Jr., assuming he's still alive, as they say, even cements that notion. So, but I don't know what group he's aligned with.
I've heard Pleiadians are working with him.
Yeah, that seems to be the one that's going around.
And I've heard multiple benevolent ET races are protecting him and working kind of like with the alliance and with him. I do truly believe we have benevolent ETs helping us through this and making sure we get through this and making sure the cabal. But the thing is like it has to be done a certain way, and there's a process to it. And I think that's why it seems to be taking a long time, and there's a lot of uncertainty and it's like, well, what about 5G? What about AI? What about all this stuff happening? What about, this virus? I think the virus was the deep state with the cabal. It's kind of like, to me, it seems like a last ditch effort of like trying to stop what's coming and further their agenda. But I think the alliance knew it was going to happen at some point, and now they're using it as a cover to do what they need to do. And now we're seeing it kind of just play out. And I truly have hope for the future. I truly believe we're headed into some amazing times. I'll just leave it at that.
I agree with everything you just said. What do you think, Kerry? I mean, you think that's potentially what's going on?
Well, I think that we are eventually going to have a very positive future, but I think that it's what we're going to go through now, this sort of, these line items that have to be gone through. And it does have to do with awakening a lot of the humans that are not awake, is probably going to go on for a while. So I'm not somebody who believes that the golden age is right around the corner, if that's what you're asking. But I think that all of the indicators are that this is going to last, I don't know, another 10 years or so, at least. So I think it's important for people to realize that we're in it for the long haul, and that this story, this game, whatever you want to call it, is something that we signed up for, and that we're going to be involved with for a while. That's just the information I have. And, people have to do your own research. You have to figure out what you think is real and true and believable, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So something you said in one of your other videos was that there were no infections in Beijing and Shanghai, which is a red flag. I mean, people should be talking about that. If that's the case, then that automatically just kind of negates their whole theory that this, they should be infected also.
Well, that's the information we have. There's very little information to the contrary. So, unfortunately, of course, with China, nothing is honest about what they come forward with. So, I think, we still need to do further investigation, but the indicators are that that's true. That someone was saying to me, they think, well, they stopped internal flights, but they didn't stop external flights. So they weren't flying between, let's say, Wuhan and Beijing or Shanghai. Right. But there's also, again, I go back to the original Chinese whistleblower that came forward, who he's part of the Chinese party. And a lot of what he wrote rings true for me. So, he talked about two viruses. He talked about a targeting of their own people. And what was leaked out of there appears to have been picked up by various countries around the world, including the United States. Now, that to me is a New World Order dark agenda. But this other virus that also was released was also very concentrated. They tested it. According to him, they tested it first on Muslim prisoners and then rolled it out, and that their initial aim was to try to infiltrate the demonstrators in Hong Kong, which is completely believable to me. So this is what we're really dealing with. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a new world order, and it's an AI. It seems all orchestrated to become part of this new world order, a one world AI that is possibly under the control of the Chinese on some level. Yeah. And this is why I believe also that war with China is inevitable. And I have also had future dreams of it. And it's interesting that Parsa comes forward with a lot of evidence about this. Perhaps he's being sort of motivated by certain players to do so, but that doesn't make his information any less true. So, we're really looking at also members of the top echelons of China, what are called the Chinese elders, and whoever they are and however many they are, and whether they're very involved in orchestrating all of this, and to what degree. I mean, our Anglo-Saxon whistleblower talked about going to a meeting in the city of London where he was thought of as being, he was in the military at the time, and he was considered one of them. And they were talking about China is going to catch a cold. And that my understanding is that the Chinese, the top levels of the Chinese, are part of the Illuminati. So it's not something that was going to happen to them. It's something that they were going to be involved in orchestrating. And again, when Mark Richards told me 6 months before this ever happened, this current situation, that the Chinese were about to eliminate 500 million of their own people, and they were trying to stop them. And Cyrus Parsa also alluded to the idea that 21 million Chinese have probably died. Not all from the same virus, by the way, because it would be two viruses. And you have to wrap your mind around the idea that also what has come through the news is that they were welding people into their apartments in China, but not all people. And so what you have to ask yourself is, unless they had to weld everyone in their places, what is really going on there? And there was a whole big thing about a lot of bodies and all this kind of thing, which we haven't seen anything like this in the West as a result of these, this so-called high altitude sickness, flu-like virus. So it does appear that there might be at least two viruses to begin with, one that was much more diabolical than the other, that did require welding people in their house because they were afraid of what shooting them up with maybe a higher strain of bat DNA was doing to turn these people into some kind of vampire-ish, things. I mean, this, the imagination runs wild is what I'm saying. And all of this is not, we can't get a straight story on it. We are getting bits and pieces and trying to basically delve into what's really going on. But at least I can tell you this much, this is my information and the way I look at it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that a while back when this all first rolled out, that there was a hotel in China. They were housing coronavirus victims. I forget, it was a 3-story hotel or something, and it collapsed in on its own footprint. And it seemed like that just kind of came and went, and nobody really talked about that as much as they should have. At least I think. And we all know it's no secret that the CCP has been working for depopulating China for a long time now. It's almost not. It's not a secret, So I just find it very peculiar that no one seemed, that whole story got no attention. Obviously, that was, the CCP just trying to eliminate some people, I think.
Sure. This whole story, again, I do recommend people read Cyrus Parsa's book, because it's covering a huge amount about China, and he's done a tremendous amount of investigation. So if you're looking at China and you want to understand what their role is, they seem front and center in this rollout to create a one world AI. And that AI is going to have complete control over each and every one of us, according to Parsa.
Well, I'm gonna jump on the optimal timeline on that one.
Yeah, same.
I'm gonna escape that.
Well, you can imagine if it's true, that why we would go to war with China. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I mean, it's the Terminator scenario. It's the Terminator movies. It's Skynet.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. It's not like this is just coming out of nowhere. There is a history. There is an understanding, and we even have made sci-fi movies about this eventuality. So, it's hard to believe that we're actually on the verge of it, but that's at least the way it's beginning to look.
Yeah, it's always a potential. There's predictive programming in all those movies, for the day when it does happen. It's already, we knew this was going to happen. We saw this in Terminator or whatever.
I mean, every sci-fi movie basically is disclosure, is what I've realized, is either stuff that's happening, or that they're planning on doing.
Well, it's true to some degree, because it's known that people like Arthur C. Clarke and even Dean Koontz are probably given, they sign a security oath, and then they're given information behind the scenes to help them write their sci-fi books.
Yeah.
And so this is, it's not just idle, sort of imaginings. This is really how it works. Governments do use creative people to, propagandize the masses on a myriad of subjects, and also give them a heads up of what they're planning.
Well, a lot of those stories. I heard allegedly George Lucas was handed information from a member of the CIA for Star Wars. And I think the CIA plays a big role in this, as far as putting these plots out, putting these stories out, and planting these seeds, planting these ideas. I think, and that's
there's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know whether you know this, but we did a television show in the early days of Project Camelot that was supposed to be the sister show to Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Theory. And it was all based on us and our witnesses, because back in those days, Jesse didn't want to deal with the ET story, but we did. So they hired us, and we were the stars, and we also helped produce it because we brought a lot of our witnesses on the show. It's called Shadow Operation, and it's available on my website, so you can watch it.
Yeah.
It was basically made exactly along the lines of how conspiracy theory was made by not the exact same company, but a related company. And partway through that show, I was there with Gordon Neville. Gordon Neville is one of the Project Camelot witnesses from the early days, who I used to kid with him all the time, saying, I know you're working for the CIA, blah, blah, blah. And then he would deny it. But that night he called me in Palm Springs and said, I got to admit, I really do work for the CIA. And my boss wants to talk to, your producer. And so I forwarded the phone call along to my producer, and basically they made him an offer that he shouldn't refuse, which was, if they could take over the show, they would let us go to series. And basically my producer, who was kind of young and naive at the time, turned him down, and subsequently he was fired. The director was fired. They recut the entire show, and they put it on the shelf for 2 years. Eventually it did get aired one Friday night on True TV. We were notified half a day before that, because they put it on the schedule. And so we were able to record it and make a copy, and that's why we have it. But of course we never went to series. So I know for a fact that the CIA is absolutely involved in whether or not someone, makes it or doesn't make it in Hollywood, or a certain story gets out there or doesn't get out there, and how they seed ideas into Hollywood to make sure that they are laying the groundwork for people to realize these things are going to come down the pipe.
Oh yeah. And that's been discussed for years too. And it's very apparent and very obvious. As soon as somebody hears that that's a potential possibility, everybody's like, well, that makes sense. Well, not everybody, but it does make a lot of sense. One last thing before we wrap this up. I want to go all the way back to the very beginning when I asked you about the children. I know we talked about it a couple of times, but specifically those tents in Central Park. Do you have any intel that might lead us to believe that those tents are on top of, let's say, an underground tunnel entrance, and children are being brought up and cared for in those tents. Do you have any?
No, I haven't gotten any whistleblower information about that. I mean, it sounds believable. I did hear that the ships were not really going to be for sick people, that was going to be a cover. Those ships that came into port, one in LA and one in
New York,
were going to be for prisoners that were going to actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say much more, but suffice to say it was part of the operation. Now, whether it really is part of the operation or not, I don't know, because I didn't get that verified either, but that is the word.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought, I mean, so many people are looking for clarity on that. I figure I just put it out there and see what you had to say about it.
Yeah.
It is suspicious. Or somebody we know went there and actually, filmed where the tents are, and they're very suspiciously placed in the middle of Central Park. So it does lead one to question things, but I mean, we can only speculate. So yeah.
Maybe someone will come forward sooner or later and reveal that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've heard recordings of alleged nurses saying that's exactly what's happening, but people are saying
I've seen a few pictures that, if they're legit, seem to show they're preparing for children for like cribs and all kinds of stuff that seem to point to that. But we'll find out hopefully soon. Yeah.
Something else I wanted to touch on, I just thought of, is the whole mind control aspect of all this, but maybe we could save that for another time. Just be conscious. Yeah. Just be conscious of that there is mind control going on. And actually, do you want to touch on that real quick if you got a minute?
As far as I'm concerned, this virus wouldn't even have any impact whatsoever if it wasn't for the major news media and their constant lies. And they are mind control. They are putting out 24/7. And, because people are in their houses, a lot of people have their televisions on constantly, and they listen to this, and they get programmed as it goes. So they're programmed to be afraid. They're programmed to be, to believe the lies and so on. And if they don't really go onto the internet and do their research, they're not going to find out the truth. So, yes, I mean, this propaganda is really hand in glove with any operation, and they're putting out information on both sides, but mainly it does appear to sell this whole idea of we need to be locked down and 6 feet apart, and all this, what I think is nonsense. So absolutely, the propaganda machine is alive and well and going full force.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, just be cautious of that and be aware that that's taking place, because once you know that the programming is happening, you can deprogram yourself and get out of it. Not escape it, but you don't have to be living blindly anymore. That being said, one last time, thank you for coming on. We're very grateful for you to join us tonight. We're very grateful for this conversation. Everyone go check out her book. It's available on Amazon. Is it available anywhere else? And do you want to?
No, actually, Rebel Gene, Secret Space in the Future of Humanity. Thank you. Yes, please do. There's a lot of stuff in there, I can say. Took me a couple years to write, actually.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, and do you have any other future projects coming up that you want to talk about, or just have people tune into your channel?
No, just, please do watch my videos, and I am putting out videos a lot lately with very good information and investigating the story as it goes, as always. And I have like over 800 video interviews on my YouTube channel. I've got over 65 million unique viewers and 254,000, I think it is, subscribers. So we're a very big YouTube channel, but at the same time, it's you know, when you look at these, I mean, a cat video gets more hits. So,
Oh, sure.
I mean, you know, you have to put it in perspective, right?
Yeah.
So anything helps, and please do consider, you know, donating and keeping us alive, keeping me alive. I don't actually have a webmaster anymore. I do have someone who helps behind the scenes with banners and stuff, but that's about it. So
cool. Well, this has been great. We hope you all enjoyed this, and we wish you luck in your future endeavors. I know you plan on, you mentioned earlier you were trying to get a little closer to the battle, so we'll definitely be praying for you because that is dangerous territory. So anything you want to say, Han?
No, just thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blessing, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
It's been great talking to you.
All right. Good night, everybody, and we will see you next week.